The final campaign. We don't know how long the group stayed in the north, but eventually they made their way back to the house at Capernaum. A wider group of followers began to gather there, wondering what would transpire next. The evidence suggests that Jesus had decided to push things to the limit, beginning a process that he believed would result in the dramatic and decisive overthrow of Satan and his kingdoms. From among his wider group of followers, he chose 70 delegates, dividing them, as he had done the 12, into two-person teams. They were to fan out ahead of him into every town and place he intended to go. Their basic commission was to heal the sick, cast out demons, and proclaim in every place, "The kingdom of God has come near to you." We don't know how widely these teams traveled, but they must have surely covered the regions in and around the Galilee. Possibly they went into Judea as well. We are told that they returned with joy, ecstatic over the powers that they had been able to exercise over the demonic world by using Jesus' name to heal and cast out evil spirits. Luke writes that Jesus told them, "I watched Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning." Jesus had had some type of vision or dream in which he saw the impending overthrow of Satan's kingdoms, perhaps at the very time these teams were carrying out their work. For him, it was an absolute confirmation that the kingdom of God would soon be manifest, and the whole country would see the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. At this point, Jesus had a core following of perhaps 100 or more, and they began to make their way around the various towns and villages, moving south toward Jerusalem and Judea. According to Luke, the crowds gathered not by the hundreds but by the thousands, so much so that they trampled on one another. Herod Antipas became quite alarmed at these activities and put out the word to have Jesus arrested. Some of the Pharisees got word of the plan and warned Jesus that he needed to leave Galilee, since Herod intended to kill him. Jesus told them, "Go and tell that fox for me, 'Listen, I am casting out demons and healing today and tomorrow, and on the third day I will be finished.'" The reference to the third day is prophetic. It is a cryptic but direct allusion to the words of the prophet Hosea that the people of Israel who have been struck down will be revived after 2 days and on the third day raised up. Hosea is speaking of the condition of Israel in exile and subject to foreign rule, which God had allowed for their sins. In prophetic texts, a day is often used symbolically for a year. Jesus had begun his healing of Israel in the spring of 28 AD, and he had continued for nearly 2 years. He planned to finish his work on the third day, which would be the upcoming spring of 30 AD. Jesus' reference to Israel being raised on the third day was later confused with ideas about Jesus himself being raised from the dead on the third day. But the text of Hosea is clearly talking about the nation, not the Messiah. Around this time in the late fall of 29 AD, Jesus also got word that his enemies in Jerusalem were looking for a way to have him arrested and killed. Jesus did not believe that the timing was right for him to confront either Herod in Galilee or the authorities in Jerusalem, so he decided to move east, across the Jordan River, into a region known as the Decapolis, to wait through the winter. The Decapolis was outside the borders of Galilee and Judea and was governed by a loose federation of 10 Greco-Roman city-states. It was relatively easy for Jesus and his entourage to set up their camp in the mountainous hill country of Gilead and find a measure of solitude and safety. We don't know if he took the larger group of over 100 or just the inner group that he'd taken north to Caesarea Philippi. In 1991, through some textual sleuthing, I was able to locate and visit this Jesus hideout in Jordan, where Jesus and his band of loyal followers possibly spent that last winter. It was one of the most exciting discoveries of my life. The Gospel of John provides us with a clue to the location. He went away again across the Jordan from the place where John had been baptizing earlier and he remained there. John had been baptizing earlier at Aenon near Salim because waters were abundant there. This place can be identified today as Tel Salim. Even today, the rich springs in the area provide water for Israeli fish ponds. Back in 1991, I was studying a map of this area, and I noticed that directly across the Jordan from Tel Salim is a deep ravine or wadi that in biblical times was the famous brook Cherith where Elijah had hidden. I further noticed that Wadi Cherith is just a few miles south of the Decapolis city of Pella. I knew from my reading that when Jesus' followers had fled Jerusalem in 68 AD, just before the Roman siege and the Great Jewish Revolt, they had fled to the region of Pella. James, the brother of Jesus, had already been killed at that time, and Jesus' brother Simon was leader of the community of Nazarenes. It dawned on me that their choice of the Pella region was not a random one. The group would have viewed the Wadi Cherith as a place of safety, not only because of Elijah being protected and nourished there, but because it is entirely possible that Simon's choice of this place as a destination for the flight from Jerusalem had to do with the time he had spent there with his brother Jesus in the winter of 29 AD. Not long after making these connections, I decided to visit Wadi Cherith. I was amazed at what I discovered. As one moves east along the wadi, it quickly becomes almost inaccessible with waterfalls and rocks. But after a short distance, it opens into an area surrounded by steep cliffs with many caves, wholly protected from outside access. There were pottery fragments dating to the 1st century Roman period on the floors of the caves. I tried to imagine Jesus and his small band of followers, likely including his own mother, brothers, and sisters, living there during those crucial final months of his life. In mid-December of 29 AD, Jesus made a daring move. We know the date because the Gospel of John tells us it was winter, at the time of the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. Jesus made a clandestine trip to Jerusalem and was almost killed. He'd gone into Herod's temple and was walking in the area called the Portico of Solomon when some of the Jewish authorities cornered him and demanded that he say plainly whether he was the Messiah or not. It was literally a plot to kill. To make such a claim was to declare oneself king. The Romans had zero tolerance for messiahs. They were not considered to be harmless religious fanatics, but potentially seditious enemies of Rome. Jesus' reply, "You do not believe because you do not belong to my sheep," so infuriated his enemies that they picked up stones to stone him. John says they tried to arrest him, but he escaped and went back to his hideout across the Jordan. Jesus had so far never publicly said he was Israel's rightful king. For Jesus, timing was everything. He repeatedly told his followers, "My time has not yet come." He had a specific plan in mind, and at the right time he would make his move.